just got to ask, Mike, was that the right graphic?
Should have been.
Okay, it was the end slate. Welcome, Hopkinton. This is the Hopkinton Hangout Hour, and it's Monday, so 2 o'clock, and we are live. And if you're catching us live, thank you for being here. And if you watch later on a replay or on our YouTube channel, we appreciate that as well. We are all about our community, talking about the issues of the day and all the great things that go on in our community. Joining me today are Mike Derosian and Matt Clark, who both work with me at your community TV station. If he's able to get away, Brian Herr will be joining us, and we'll be talking energy. If not, we're going to give you some updates on what's happening behind the scenes with the sports seasons, because there's a lot going on in this pandemic world. In the second half hour, well, you may have heard about the HCA, but have you heard about the HCAA? That is the Hopkinton Chinese American Association. And we have a couple people from there who are going to be on talking to us about all the things that are in the news and what is happening in Hopkinton with our Chinese friends and neighbors. So we're excited to bring them onto the show. Now, right now, Mike, Matt, welcome. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, no, good. It's good to be here, Jim. It's been a while since I've been on here.
Yeah, I don't normally get a daytime spot, but thanks. Yeah.
I was thinking the same thing, Matt. It's been too long. We got to get a show for you.
Oh, I actually just booked one over the weekend, so that's coming up.
Excellent. All right. So right now, we're going to start. Both of you have a hand in making sure and trying to bring the Hiller action to our community. So, Mike, you've done a lot of work on scheduling and organizing. So bring everybody up to speed for a little bit about what went into the production slate.
Well, it's been a real crazy one, Jim. We've had just constant change with the whole COVID as things open up. Things are starting to get scheduled more and more. Unlike the last season where we had a lot of cancellations, now things are going. So I got tons to tell you, but you know what? I'd rather hear from our guest today.
All right. Yeah, it's very exciting. So I think a lot of people have been connecting with that, and that's great. Now, Mr. Brian Herr has arrived and has joined us. So, Brian, thank you so much for making the time for us today.
Hey guys, how's everyone doing?
We're all doing well, thank you. So we're talking about energy on this show. And if anybody doesn't know, I know you not only are a Hopkinton resident, but you work here in Hopkinton as well. So can you tell us, I'm really interested in what type of work your company is in and also how you came to be in that role. So let's kind of get an update on what your company does for work.
So I've been in the contracting business, whether it's working with general contractors or electrical subcontractors and others for many, many years. I hate to admit it, but over 30 years. I've been since I got out of college. And always sort of in the electricity and energy field, not necessarily in the energy production business, but in similar businesses. About 6 years ago now, 6 or 7 years ago now, having been at one company for a long, long time, Westinghouse Electric Corporation and its one of its subsidiaries, Wesco Distribution, I was working a lot with Ken Driscoll and the folks at Select Energy here in Hopkinton, selling product to them with our teams in place. And then about 6 years ago, I decided it was time for a career change for myself, and I went from sort of working in and around solar into working directly with Ken and his folks at Select Energy. It's a great industry. It's a wild ride. Every day is something different, something new, something exciting. It certainly keeps you on your toes. It's a lot of fun. So I'm an engineer by degree. I'm a mechanical engineer, always been in the electric business. Go figure that one. But really do like it. I like working in an industry that's doing something for our world and also can provide a good living for many, many people. So renewable energy is cool. It's here to stay, and I'm glad to be part of it.
Yes, I agree with that. In fact, I actually put solar panels on 2 houses, so we're a big fan of that. And cool. For me, one of the things that I find is really, really encouraging to do that are the SRECs, that you get and the incentives that you get for getting that onto your house. And it's been about, I don't know, 5 or 6 years now that I did the house that I'm currently in. So is that program still available, and how is Massachusetts helping to support the growth of solar?
Yeah, Mass is one of the really good states in the United States for solar. Massachusetts, New York, New Jersey, North Carolina, Colorado, California, a lot of ones you would think based on the way they're governed. But Massachusetts in particular is very, very strong. So the SREC program that you were part of when you went in 5 or 6 years ago, got into the solar process then, that program kind of ran its course. It got fully subscribed. So then the state came out with a new program called SMART, another acronym. There's all kinds of acronyms in the world. And SMART, S-M-A-R-T, is the latest form of the solar incentive program that Massachusetts offers to solar developers like ourselves or owners of arrays, people that own buildings, own houses, things like that. So the SMART program is a little bit different than SREC. It's a little bit more flexible than SREC, which is good. In the past, when people were developing solar, they had to understand really clearly right up front where the electricity was going to go. In the case of your houses, it was probably coming into your house, obviously, to help offset your bill and create clean energy there on your roof. But in the past, some businesses couldn't take all the power that their roof could produce. So they'd want to transfer those credits or that power to some other location. And that got to be more difficult as time went on. SMART allows you, if you have extra energy or if you want to put all the energy from the solar facility, it allows you to put it right up onto the grid and basically sell it to the grid. There's just lots of little clean energy power plants all over the state that are now producing energy and selling that power to the grid. So we're all in the process of consuming more and more clean energy every time we turn a light switch on.
So that's really interesting because I remember when Tesla came out with their big house batteries, and they can run your house for a while, and you could store energy in there and then use it later. But the Massachusetts concept is kind of like the grid is your battery. So when you're producing more, you're putting out onto the grid, which you get a credit for, and then when you need it, you get energy off the grid.
Yeah, exactly. The grid can be the power source. You can also use storage. Massachusetts has a lot of incentives to include storage in solar development now, so the state's really trying to encourage any array that's over 500 kW, which is half a megawatt, which is a good size array. Any array of that size or larger, they want to have storage as part of the package, if you will, for the developers and for the array owners. So storage is the next big wave that's coming. Solar has almost become normalized. It's not quite normal yet in the minds of people around the country and around the globe, but it's almost there. Storage is that next thing now that's going to come on, and you can add storage to arrays that are existing, so there's a whole big opportunity there. Solar works during the day, but what happens at night, right? So if you have storage, you have solar charging storage during the day, certainly during peak times of demand when electricity is more expensive, you can lower your electric bill that way as well by offsetting demand charges. But then you also have power in your battery that you can then burn off in the evening and at night. So someday we'll become energy independent, but we're not there yet. But storage is a big piece of what's coming.
Well, that's really interesting because I thought that storage was important for grids that you could not send power back onto the grid. And I thought in Massachusetts we could. So as I had said, I thought we used the grid as our storage. But now you're saying that it's actually coming for here too.
You can do both. Yeah, you can use the grid if that's what you want to do, or you can put storage in place. You can fill up your batteries, and whatever you still have extra, you can send up onto the grid. You can always. That's the nice thing about SMART. It's far more flexible than the original SREC program. There's no restrictions for how things are done.
Yeah. So I don't know if you know, but when you send electricity back to the grid, are they paying you the same that when you buy electricity from the grid?
I wish. No, they're not. It's at a discounted rate, but it still can be very competitive and help make the rate pencil or work financially. It depends. The utilities will be a little bit different in how they do that. Each utility has a little bit different set of tariffs they work under. But it's affordable and it can be very competitive if you just sell it all to the grid. The best way to do solar, though, still, ideally, is to put solar on a roof, you put solar on the ground near a facility, and you bring all that power into that building or into that business, and you use it all on site. That's the best return on investment financially, and it's the best use of that clean energy as well, because it's truly offsetting, any fossil fuel energy that might come in from the utility. Not everybody can do that, though, so that's why you have some rules in place to allow some power to go up onto the grid. That's why storage is going to help that situation. We try to find clients that are interested in consuming as much power as possible on site. It's the best return for them. It's the best for our business. I think it's the best for really everyone involved.
Now, I do know that the electric companies have done really well. In fact, they've done so well that they fund programs to help you use less of the product that they sell you. And they send people out to, look at your house and see where you can save and give you LED light bulbs and stuff like that. And so before I say this, I am saying it's probably pretty far away if this is the case. But do you see these types of systems that you're talking about ever becoming a concern for the electric companies for their viability?
So the electric companies are really good about supporting clean energy initiatives. They're really good about supporting energy reduction initiatives like LED light bulbs, variable frequency drives, things like that can regulate electricity consumption and help you sort of manage your flow, especially during peak times when it can be very expensive. That said, we're gradually, the renewable energy industry and the independent power producer marketplace is gradually chipping away at the customer base of the utilities. So yes, I think that they have some angst about it, but long term, I think they all recognize, and the states like Massachusetts and New York and New Jersey and Colorado, California, and all those others, and the states are kind of guiding them to where they have to go, which is to someday, pull complete energy independence off of fossil fuels. They don't like it. I've run into them, in certain situations where they've really pushed back pretty hard. But I think they understand the reality of it. It's not going to happen tomorrow. It won't happen 5 years from now. But I'm certain in my kid's lifetime, there will be completely energy independent microgrids all over the country, all over the globe. And we'll be in a whole different place than we are today. But look at electric cars. I mean, if you think about electric cars, 10 years ago, electric cars were really cool. They're really expensive, and everybody's like, I don't know if I should buy one yet. And now look at them. Now they're really starting to flourish. Electric cars are going to be the thing. I think in another 10 years, it's hard to get gas consumption from. The world's changing in front of our eyes in so many ways. And there's the whole other side of renewable energy that we touched on a little bit with some of the states. But the politics of renewable energy is real. And I'm familiar with a little bit of the politics that goes on in the state, and we have a very good supportive environment politically to make renewable energy happen at all levels, and for independence to happen. Again, I think in our kids' lifetime, we're going to see drastic changes in the next 20 years. That continue to work, but I think for our kids, it'll be wholly different.
Okay. Now, during that, what you were just talking about, you said microgrids. Is that different than just power for your house? Is that different?
Yeah, so microgrids, it's a term in the industry. It can mean a lot of different things for a lot of different people. There's a lot of interpretation there about what's a microgrid. In my mind, a microgrid is a business that has its own little grid right there. So let's say it's a campus. Let's say Harvard University, for example. Harvard University can get lots of solar on all their buildings. They could go out and get some solar on some of the land that they own in the area, and they could really get a lot of storage in place. And somebody with that level of consumption, because Harvard consumes an awful lot of power, and somebody with that level of capital to deploy to create clean energy and live off clean energy or run off clean energy, somebody like that can create a microgrid where they've got storage, they've got some wind turbines up on their roofs to help on a windy day. So some days it's blowing out here, not very sunny, so there's not a lot of production coming out of solar. But if you've got a small wind turbine up there, it doesn't look like the thing you see on the tape, but something similar to that to generate power. You combine that with storage and a couple of other technologies, you can truly create your own little grid, microgrid, in your area, in your neighborhood, and be energy independent. That's what I think is coming someday down the road. It'll take a combination of things to make it all come together.
So, do you think that this technology is not yet ready for prime time in the sense of being able to create a building and have it be completely energy sufficient without having to worry about plugging into the grid as backup? Technology there?
Yeah, I think we're probably a year or two away from really being able to pull the plug from the utility for that particular microgrid. A lot of the inverters, most of the inverters run on AC power, alternating current power. Give my engineering stuff that comes out every now and then. But the AC power, the inverters run on the AC power. The solar creates DC power, converts it. The inverter converts it from DC to AC, and then it goes up into the house or it goes up onto the grid. You need that AC power from the utility today in most instances to operate those inverters. Storage will replace that someday, but that's still coming out of DC power, out of the storage battery, and you got to invert it back to AC from the other direction, if you will. So it's a little bit convoluted at the moment. I do think that's coming, and I think there's a great market, for that out there for people that want to get in the renewable energy space to think about storage and full energy independence. But we're not quite there yet. Storage in general is being deployed around the country, but not very efficiently. Like an efficient distribution channel of getting the product from the manufacturing facility into the field and installing roofs and buildings and things like that. That's not there yet. It's hard to get the product. It's hard to get a reasonable lead time on the product. They say we'll ship it 2 to 4 months and ship it 6 months. So there's still a lot of rust on the belt there that we have to kind of clean off. Get that side of the industry to run smooth. But solar is very predictable now as far as technology goes, and every day it's getting a little bit more efficient. So again, I think renewable energy is here to stay for the long run.
Right. Now you did say, and I was very surprised at this. You did say it's probably a couple of years away for that capability. And I'm just wondering, is that just technology-wise, or is that also feasibility-wise? Would it be cost-effective in a few years for a system like that?
I felt the technology is here now. I'm just talking in terms of ease of installation, ease of operation, and efficiency of not only getting it done and keeping it running. But the technology is here today. You could theoretically go out and build a completely self-reliant building if you wanted to. It'll be expensive, and it won't be a smooth process to get put together for all the different pieces of that puzzle to create the capacity of that microgrid. But the technology is definitely available now. I think it's a couple of years until it becomes a little bit more of the norm. If you think back to solar 10 or 15 years ago, a few years before you did it, Jim, it was kind of rough around the edges. I can think of a certain school in a certain town that I'm very involved in that put solar on a roof of a school building. And then a few years later, we had to go to town meeting and say we need $1 million to fix some holes in the roof. I was kind of energized about that, being in the business. Like, that's not how it should happen. But that did happen early on. And it's understandable that technology creates some challenges. But now, a lot of that is all smoothed out, and it's much more efficient. And I think the overall sort of microgrid independent system is still a couple years away.
Okay. I'm going to allow myself one quick diversion because I've always wondered this. So, Brian, if you were running the world, would it be valuable or useful or a good idea to switch our households from running on AC to running on DC and getting DC appliances and things like that? Is there an advantage to that, or is AC superior?
So first and foremost, I have zero interest in running the world. I have zero interest in anything other than what I'm doing right now. What I'm doing now wraps up very soon, and I won't be running anything when it comes to the broader community, right? But as far as DC to AC, that's an interesting question. AC power, I think is a little bit more reliable in general in terms of how it flows than DC power. You can have some weak phases of AC. So AC, alternating current, getting sinusoidal waves. So here's wave A, here's wave B a little bit behind it, and here's wave C a little bit behind that. So you've got these 3 phases of power flowing through a circuit. and each is kind of one right behind the other, and the frequency is how fast those things are moving through and so on. 60 hertz is the frequency that you go around today, as we have for decades. DC power is one constant stream of energy. So you have one constant stream of energy with a little glitch in that somehow. You've got a little drop or something in that DC power, your whole circuit right there, your whole flow, if you will, is dropping simultaneously. There's only one thing. You can have a little bit of phase imbalance and alternating current. You can have one phase maybe be a little bit weaker than the other two phases. So you've got some kind of dependency and support in the various phases of AC power. I've not studied it honestly in my career, but just knowing how AC works and sort of the residual nature of it and the backup sort of characteristics of it, I think it's a more reliable form of energy current. But smarter people can figure that one out. That's just
Okay. So when I first was hearing and making decisions about solar power for my personal residence, it was new, right? And it was, they had to show you put in a big chunk of money up front, and then you're saving this on your electric bill over the course of 10 years. And in my particular case, you're getting SRECs, so that's helping defray, and that would prove that it was cost effective to do that. Is that still something that you need to go out there and quote unquote sell? Or because every time I hear about it, it seems like it's getting more and more cost effective. So is it like when you talk to people, are they accepting of that, or do you still have to educate them on that?
Oh, I think there's still a pretty strong education process that everyone goes through. I think it's healthy for people to learn as much as they can about the process and the technology and the financial models behind it. If they're thinking about putting it on their house or putting it on their business, the more informed we all are, the better we are about whatever the topic might be. But I think it's important to understand how it all works. You have a big federal tax credit into the puzzle, 26%. So if you invest $100,000 in a solar array, you get a dollar for dollar, 26% or $26,000 credit against your taxes going forward. You can chip away and carry pieces of that forward, and you can use it all up in one tax year. You can depreciate and accelerate the depreciation of the asset up to 85% of the asset value, and you can pull all that depreciation forward. The depreciation schedule is 20, 30 years, something like that. You can pull it all forward, and you can depreciate the asset in 1 year if you want to, if your books can absorb that kind of depreciation. So you've got the federal tax credit of 26%. You have the accelerated depreciation of the same asset up to 85% of that. And then you've got the SREC that you have, or the current version, this is the smart incentives that the state of Massachusetts puts out there. All these credits, all these financial things are put in place by governments at the federal and state level to incentivize people to get in the game and to make the solar work financially for everybody involved too. As the cost of solar technology continues to come down, which it is, and the production of the solar gets more efficient, and it's going up, which it is. So as those two, costs come down, production goes up, more electricity is being produced, there'll be less and less need for the state and federal incentives. Someday, solar hopefully will stand on its own and work financially without having to sort of pool money from utilities and things like what the state does now. And I think those days will come. They're still probably several years away. But I do think that someday, as all this other stuff that we've been talking about comes to be, I think you'll find that solar can stand on its own without incentives at the state level. That said, our friends in Washington, D.C. continue to incentivize the oil and gas industry. There are federal tax incentives for infrastructure improvements in the oil and gas industry. They've been around for 100 years, ever since the cars started burning gasoline. And so, it may be hard for the industry to kind of wean itself off of some of the tax credits. And it may be hard for some of our elected officials in D.C. to do that as well, because they think about votes and all those other things that sometimes I wish they didn't think about, but they do, I guess. So.
Right. Yeah, that always complicates it. Although, I just see it, it's such as it's the future. You know, it's definitely the way the world is going to go. So I think it's wonderful. Any kind of support that can help that along.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, last question. Our time is running short. I'm wondering, as you see the progression in technology for solar panels, is it incremental every year, or is it more often that there are like big technological advances?
I think there were bigger leaps early on in the industry, and solar panels have been in operation in Massachusetts since the 1970s, and there's still some. I've heard recently of some panels up on the North Shore of Mass that have been operating since like 1978. They're still producing power to this day. So I think early on, when I say early on, like in the last 15 years ago, when it really started coming on across the country in earnest, the leaps in efficiency and the technology improvements were pretty substantial year in and year out. Not 5 or 10%, but 15, 20, 25% in terms of production and things like that. It has slowed a little bit in that the increments in production are smaller now. The reductions in cost are a little bit smoother now. So it's a little bit. It's not an exponential curve upward in terms of production or a drop in cost like it used to be. It's a little bit more of a flat line with a gradual increase or a gradual decrease on the cost side. But I think that will continue for some time. We've gone from when I first got really involved, the panels were 165 watts of panels, so the production coming out, the DC production coming out of the panel was 165 watts. Now they're at 405 watts, soon to be 415 watts. They went from 165 to 325, 340 in 2 or 3 years, and ever since they hit 340, 360, they're kind of now inching up a little bit more. So it's more gradual today, but I think that's also a sign of how proven the technology is and how well the panels work. It's really about there's silicon in the panels. The panels are basically big chips, just like the chip that's in your phone that's made out of silicon. Solar panels are filled with silicon as well, and the efficiency of that silicon drives a lot of it. And I think it'll continue to improve, but it won't be as drastic as it has been in the past.
Okay. And that was really interesting. I did not know that there were some panels from a few decades ago that are still producing power. So is there like what the average lifespan of a panel would be? Like if you put a system on your house, what would you reasonably look and expect?
If you put a system on your house, and let's say it's a 10 kW system today, a year from now, that 10 kW system will be down 0.5% in production. So 0.5%, 0.005, right? So 0.5%. And it gradually decreases 0.5% a year for about 15 years. And then they will flatline at about 85%, 87%. And they'll hold at that number for 20 to 30 years out. The panels today that we install, which are only Tier 1 panels, which is the best bankable product you can get. You can get loans on everything from the banks. That's the word bankable, right? They very technical, they'll last 30 years. They warranty them for 25 to 30 years. It's not uncommon to get a 25-year warranty on a solar panel. And they'll warranty that production number flatlining at around 86% as well. So you get very reliable, very predictable energy for years and years to come. The one thing that really helps solar today, and will continue to help it going forward, is we don't have price increases. Once you install your array, you've got bankable, solid, consistent energy at a cost number that you can assign to it, and that can be steady for the next 30 years. When it comes to fossil fuels and typical utility power, we always have a big to-do. There's going to be a really cold winter in October. There's all this, everyone stresses out because we're going to have a very cold winter, and all the utilities come out and they say we need a 10% increase, we need an 11% increase. We're being nice this year, we only need a 7% increase. So they increase rates every year in the fall. And then every spring they have a party and they have a cake and they have balloons and they cut rates 3%. Well, if you increased at 8, you only cut at 3, we're still up 5% year over year. And that has happened year after year after year, and that'll continue to happen. But your solar power, once you get it installed, that rate either stays steady if you're buying the power from someone like us, or you're getting it from the rate yourself.
That's excellent. That's excellent. Hey, thank you for the work that you do for our world. You know, really, that's
I
important.
can do it. Yeah, I love
Right.
it. It's a great business. Really enjoy it.
Yeah, yes. And I appreciate you taking the time out to share your knowledge with us. And I hope to have you back and talk more about it because I find it fascinating.
Happy to be here and hope all is well. Take care.
All right. Thank you, Brian. Take care.
Bye-bye. Take care.
Okay, we are about to turn to our next topic. And just before that, I'm going to ask Matt to come on, and he is going to give us something that, quite honestly, I haven't had time for lately, but he's going to give us a little insider update on what you can expect to see coming up on HCAM. So, Matt, take it away.
Yeah, absolutely, Jim. We'll go real quick, but coming up later this afternoon at 4 o'clock, we have a JV football versus Holliston. Later tonight, we have the Zoning Advisory Committee meeting at 7 p.m. and then the Hiller Swimming and Diving versus Milford on HCAM at 7:20. Tomorrow we have Hiller Volleyball starting at 3:30, going all the way until about 7:30, so 3 games tomorrow. We have the Select Board meeting airing on HCAM TV at 6 p.m. and then we have the Conservation Commission meeting airing at 7 tomorrow. So, and that's just the next 2 days, so we have a lot this week.
All right. Thank you very much.
No problem.
And now I am very excited to welcome Sherry and Z onto this next segment. They are from the Hopkinton Chinese American Association, and I'm very much looking forward to getting their thoughts. I think we all know there have been some horrific events lately, and as our world becomes more conscious of things, we're becoming more aware of many things that we haven't in the past. And oftentimes on this show, I've referenced, difficult conversations. And I find that having a difficult conversation around, race relations or racism can be really hard on a community TV show because we're all our community, we're all our friends and neighbors here. So what I am very appreciative for is the opportunity to hear their stories, because I think our place in this whole discussion is to just talk to each other and hear like what our experiences are, because there are a lot of things that we just don't know that people are going through, and we should know, and it's important for us to hear that. So, Sherry and Z, I'd like to welcome you both for taking the time to be on our show today.
Thank you for having us. Just before we start, I'd like to make a remark here, just personally, because sometimes I'm afraid to talk about over the public about what our political views are or the big topics, because some of this information is very sensitive. And as a mom, as a middle-aged person, as a resident of Hopkinton, sometimes I'm afraid I'm going to make a mistake on a public show. But it would be good for us to talk about it, because I know information could be sensitive, but it's good to have open and local discussions, because we all know each other personally, and sometimes we talk about something it might not be so politically correct, but we know each other, and we know it just came out, there's no harm thing, there's no malicious intention. Sometimes it's just from individual background, and sometimes we are not so complete or well-rounded in political phases, but we'd like to share what we have seen, what we have experienced. So thank you for having us.
That's purposely. Thank you. Sherry, would you like to make a statement?
Yes, just thank you. First, thank you for having us, and I would like to second what Gigi just said, that opening the dialogue is the first step, and we greatly appreciate the opportunity to talk about this and to start as.
Great. So just very briefly, kind of set the stage for what I think our role is here. Not long after the George Floyd incident, my mother-in-law was attending her church, and they were talking about it. And she walked away amazed because every single black person who was in that conversation had a story of racism. Every single person. And she had no idea. And I think that if we heard each other's stories, we are all people, right? We're all people. And a lot of the fault of people like me is not seeking out the story and not understanding what's going on. You know, I mean, I believe America is the greatest country on earth, and it's because of all of us. You know, so I really look to hear what your experiences are, to hear what your stories are. Not, you know, there are other news channels and there are other outlets where they go for, you know, one side or the other, and it's very confrontational. But, you know, I like to learn from each other, and I like to understand what's going on. So, please tell me, how did you both come to our community? Where'd you come from? I mean, like,
has been here longer. Maybe I'll let her start.
yes.
Yeah. So I come here just like a lot of Chinese residents here. EMC headquarters is located in Hopkinton, and I want to purchase a house so close to my work, 10 minutes drive, there's no highway, so this is the time I came over. So I'm probably one of the first, at least maybe the first 20 Chinese families to live in Hopkinton. So this is probably over 10 years of me staying in Hopkinton. And also yesterday when I was collecting some information, I just realized that the time I spent in Massachusetts is the same time I spent in my hometown. So it's equal amount. So a lot of times people ask, you know, where you come from, all the things. I know for my kids, they probably say I'm coming from Massachusetts. But for me, it's like half of the time in China, in a small town, and half of my time really get education and started working and gain my individual personalities or individual perspective of the world is really in America. So that's my story.
That's very interesting. I'm going to ask you, Sherry, too, because you know what? Where do I come from? I come from Dudley, right? This little town about 45 minutes away. And I like to go back there and kind of, you know, go down the streets that I grew up on. And for you to share that with your children, it's on the other side of the planet. It must be much more difficult, you know, when you're talking about your childhood and sharing, you know, the things that that you like to do. So that's a big thing.
Yeah, and that's very true. I came to Massachusetts in 2013, and that's because of my husband's job. We used to live in Texas, and before that, we lived in Atlanta and Richmond. So, but very similar to GT, that I have been in this country almost as long as I spent my time in China, and the similar story that, you know, the most of my adult life is in this country, and you know, I love this country. It is what makes me who I am today, but you know, talking about the childhood and the stories that we have to share with the kids, I echo you that it is very hard to relay what we had as a child to what my kids have today. So it's very interesting, and it's very different. It provides a different perspective of what life could be, and try to get them to connect. You know, we visited a place that I grew up in, and we also often visit, and you know, they get it, but it's still very different.
Right. And I'm not going to ask you what's better, Texas or Massachusetts, because my wife has a friend in Texas, and I've seen the spiders down there. So I know Massachusetts is better.
Except a long winter.
Yes. But that makes you appreciate the summer more, doesn't it?
Yeah, and it's already springtime this week.
Yes. So, tell me a little bit about the HCAA.
Oh, I'll be happy to. So I'll take that one. So the HCAA is a nonprofit organization. A few of us, you know, we started organizing Chinese New Year celebration gala every year, and later on, based on that, we formed the organization. So in the past, the biggest events that we held is the annual Chinese New Year celebration around Spring Festival time. I am not sure if you have been to one, but if not, next year we would like to invite you there. And this year we have to move it online, of course, so it was a very different experience. And also we have organized a few donations to local communities like a library, the project Just Because, the school, and last year we organized a mask and personal protection equipment to the towns, the senior center, the police department, the fire department, all that. So we are pretty much a charity organization.
That is wonderful. That is really wonderful. And I'm so excited. I would definitely love to be there. This year, I had a student. I run a TV club at middle school, and one of my students created a segment all about Chinese New Year. So that was exciting for us to include too.
Yeah.
So thank you for sharing a little bit of your background and how you came here. Z, should we go into the video now, and then we can talk kind of a little bit about what we can share about what's happening today?
Okay.
All right. By Z, who went through our training workshops here at HPM, who's a student crew member. So that was awesome. I really do appreciate that you thought of us and you went out and you created that video.
Yeah, thank you.
I want to...
It's great to have the training.
So I want to give you both space now for your comments on the day, on the emotion. Please tell us anything.
Okay, so I'll let Sherry talk first because she's the president of HCAA, the Hopkinton Chinese American Association, and this event is organized by HCAA and the leaders and the volunteers. So I'll really greatly appreciate their help to set up this event. So I'll give the show to Sherry to talk about HCA.
All right, thank you. And Juicy, thank you again for taking the video. I saw you that day, running around, taking pictures and videos. It's a lot of work. And the video is very well edited. And now I know where you got your training from. Very well done. Yes. So I just would like to talk about a little bit of background. So, as an organization, we typically don't do things. I do hope that this is the first time that we do things. So, when the news reached us, for me personally, I was very emotional, and I was just simply appalled to learn such news. And we talked about it among a few members of our organization, and we knew we need to do something about it. So we called the town and talking about a small assembly. And the town is very supportive. We set on a date and a time, and that's Saturday. And then we started to spread the words around. So here I would like to thank the Hopkinton Freedom Team and the South Asian Circle of Hopkinton. We reached out to them, and they help us spread out the words, and they are very, very supportive. And then we also, spread the words around the Asian community in the nearby towns. And we did not actually expect so many people to turn up, but the turnout was much, much bigger than what we expected. Feel very supportive, and as a community member, that makes me feel very good. Yeah.
Okay, that's great. Thank you for that. And I just want to say that, of course, it is not. I just can't understand. The sign that was most heartbreaking was that young girl who said that my ethnicity is not a virus. The fact that somebody could be made to feel that way in this country is just literally not what this country is about. This country is supposed to be the world's melting pot. This is where we all come together and we make the best country there is on this earth. So I was very distressed to hear so many things that were going on. And I would like to do what I can to be part of the action to try to help. One of the emails that you sent me, one of you said, the HCAA would like to, be more a part of the community. And you know what? That's a really nice statement, but quite honestly, you are a part of the community.
We are, yes.
And the fact that, you have to say that as a group, we want to be more. You know what? That's backwards. We should be making sure that you are comfortable because we're all in this together. So, and I don't know of anything else to do but to really just share and to really just live life together and and just come to know that, oh my gosh, we are all the same. We're all the same.
Yes, thank you. And I agree. We are all a part of Hopkinton community, and we love our life here. My personal experience has been wonderful. No matter in Massachusetts, Hopkinton, or Texas. The same with you. I don't understand how such thing could happen, and I would like to quote something that there's no room for hatred here in this country, and we all need to work together toward that goal.
That's really important because there is far too much of this, and as unpleasant as this is, I mean, as things become more exposed, we have a better chance of confronting them, confronting it and rooting it out, and just putting the lie to how where this stuff is coming from. So, what I hope to do is beyond the invitation, which, Sherry, you made on tape that I'm invited to the next Chinese New Year. I would be very interested in what I can to help share your stories of community, your community, like your community of Hopkinton, as well as, your community from China, because I find that everybody is different, and I haven't been to China, and I can't imagine what that culture is like. It's so interesting, and I would love to, have the opportunity to share that with you and to hear, stories and to spread that around our community. So I would like to try to see if we can have more opportunity to have discussion and share stories of each other, and just kind of go down the road of life together, as they say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, this is actually the purpose that, Jim, I talked to you earlier last year. It's almost a year ago that I decided to join the training of HCAM and learn more about like TV productions, or my dream about a movie director, other things. I always said, we might want to have a show, like a series, to talk about China, because all we learn from books or movies are some things like the past, or what the great people have seen or have experienced, but those happened in a very high level. But for us, we are regular person. We kind of are like citizens in both countries, and we have our personal experience, which is somehow different from what the great people see the world, or the politicals. We are just daily things that might not be so interesting to put on TV, but would be good for sharing. So this is something we can always talk and plan, so that Hopkins has more chances to look into the details of our special Asian.
Multicultural exchange is a big part of our HCA's mission, and that's something that we strive to do better. So, um, great idea that, I think, Jim, so maybe later on we'll have, more opportunities to share personal life of some community member, and, just like Gigi said, nothing dramatic, nothing special, but, it's who we are, and just we need to make each other understand each other better.
Right. So it may not be dramatic, but it is special. Everybody's story is special.
Yeah.
Z,
Yeah.
quick question for you. Are you still doing a podcast?
I still plan to podcast or podbean. I've been doing some research over that. I know Clubhouse has been very kind of hot these days, but it's all the good ideas. I'm open to all different type of social medias to talk about anything we like, either from daily life to Asian Americans or American cultures or IT, because I'm IT engineer. Everything we would love to share, and it's very important. Because I like to get engaged more with local people. The pandemic started earlier last year, so it's more than a year since it happened, and the lockdown happened, and kids been sent back to school. And I've been working at home since then. And personally, it has been chaos and stress and confinement. We stay in a little room, and there's no interaction with other adults. Because every day I face my kids, and it's a lot of pressure, to play video games, all that stuff. I'm sure all the parents understand this. But sometimes, I still remember the warm speech you gave, Jim, you gave during the last September annual review of HCAM, that during a pandemic, this is a time people want to connect more with local people, with people next door, so that we have, the world outside may be in chaos, but we still in a tightly coupled world, and it's a world full of love. And also, I remember the email superintendent sent out during Groundhog Day. It's an email I still remembered, but I don't have the exact word. And she mentioned Groundhog Day, the movie, is like the day repeats, and it's so tedious, and people were limited in one day, can never get out. And it's a very similar situation to pandemic area that we were limited in this physical small space, we are not able to get out. But it's really a tightly built and a loved community keeps us with a bigger world, with good imagination, with a lot of love, a lot of support. So I still remember that email. So thanks for superintendent. That's a very good email. And thanks for her support last weekend for her personal blog.
Yeah, that everybody read that, and we are touched by her words.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, she's a very smart lady. All right, so our time grows short, and before I kind of bring our first of many conversations to a close, I just wanted to make sure that if there was something that you were hoping to say, that there is space for that.
Yep, I just want to say thank you again to everyone in Hopkinton for the support, and for the inclusion. I feel I'm fortunate to live in such a beautiful, quiet town.
Yeah, and also for me, I have a special message for the little girl's parents in the video. So if you see the video, about 2 minutes, there are 4 little girls huddling together and jumping around, very, very cute. And one of the girls actually mentioned her dad promised her a toy if she appears on YouTube, on TV. So I want her dad to remember that and keep the promise.
That is wonderful. That is wonderful. All right. Well, listen, again, thank you both, and thank you through the work that you do in Hopkinton, and also for the ACAA for making Hopkinton the great place to live that it is. And I'm very much looking forward to learning more about your activities and your events, and connecting with you.
Yeah,
and
for
we'll
sure.
have a show.
Absolutely. I'm going to follow up with you, Z. I'm going to follow up.
Okay, great. Thank you for
All right.
having us.
My
Thank you.
pleasure. Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
And thank you for spending this hour with us on the Hopkinton Hangout Hour. We hope that you found it informative and interesting, and you come back on Wednesday for more. And you can find more episodes on our YouTube channel, as well as airing on our community TV station here in Hopkinton. Have a great day, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.